here we are in game number 6, 98 finals, Bulls versus Jazz. The Bulls have made a lineup change. We discussed that earlier in some recordings about Tony Kukoc starting at power forward and Luke Longley as 7-footers taking on Karl Malone, a 6'9" forward. Karl Malone in game number 5 had a terrific game. We're back playing on the Sunday evening ball game. The owner, Miller, can't go to these games. As a devout Mormon, he's not at these games. He's watching it somewhere at home. We run here a little program called Outside Cut by the Guard, called a fist side as a signal for it, just to see how Scottie's going to be played and how he's doing. He scores on the play immediately right off the bat. Obviously, here they come right back to their favorite play, which is Karl Malone in the post, power basketball. Cross screen or rip screen, those will be the two things you'll see most of the time in this exhibit of Jazz offense. Here the triangle's being filled, and we'll get the ball into the post, a squeeze to Ron Harper with Tony Kukoc. And then he continues on his cut and gets a pick for Michael Jordan. Very simple play. We're starting out very much structured basketball. Again, we're going in the post to Scottie Pippen in a sequence, and Stockton's going to be the guy that's in rotation. And he's coming off of Ron Harper here. Ron's pointing, make sure that he's not illegal, which probably is. He's on the other side, but that's the way the game was played back then. They get into rotation, and Kukoc has an open 3 from the corner. He was hot the game before, not this time. Again, Luke makes a bad pass. Instead of making a drop pass, he tries to make a pass over the top. And we collect a basket on just a simple turnover. All right, the Jazz have either side. They come run this box offense that's abbreviated a little bit in their system. And I think they call a 40 on this side of the court and a 50 on the other, or vice versa. And Hornacek's the guy that comes up and gets picked by Malone. There you see Stockton make a great pass. And they catch Michael, letting him go on the backside, which is against the rules of defense. Dribble entry, just running our basic things. Pippen's going to be on the curl cut here, and Tony has an open space against Keefe and takes advantage. One of the things about the offense is it's always your choice. Whose advantage? Post is free. Whoever wants the post can get to it first. It's got his name on it. Here's the rip screen I was talking about before. The 40 series, Hornacek picks Karl Malone. This is going to be done often, on and on, during the course of this game. Luke gets on the wrong side of Karl Malone, gets a pass over the top and a foul. We have post-up opportunities with Ron Harper with Stockton. You can see how hard Stockton fights. Strong legs, able to physically be a pretty good defender even at 6'2", 6'3". Here you see another rip screen, leaving Ron Harper exposed on the wing, and Stockton takes advantage of that. Here's another example for the Jazz defensively setting up Karl Malone. It's cross pick effort now. Rip screen we saw where Horny was going up and setting the back screen on Malone's man. Now he set the cross pick on Luke Longley. We want him to push over the top. Don't let Karl go baseline. He's very difficult. You can see how deep Stockton takes the ball here. That's also an issue. But now you can see the depth of this play. The Hornacek flips back. It got a number of options. Comes back around off of this. Sometimes he gets that shot. Sometimes a three-point shot. Now they're going to run their little squeeze action, as we call it. As we're talking about details, you can see now that on this cross pick by Horny, Luke sends Malone over the top, so now Jordan could get a little tag on Malone so he doesn't have such a great position as to come off the lane to get the ball. We're making a little rotation here. Ron gets caught in it, and they get an illegal defense, which was part of the program back in the 90s, was all about illegal defense and being in the right spacing, which made no sense. And unfortunately, the NBA made a change in that rule. Wing entry, guard diagonal. Pippen goes right to the post. That's not a good sight. We don't like to see that because Pippen's got a back issue. He's been in hot pads most of the pregame. Probably didn't go out and shoot at all. Limited. They're getting organized here, and it's going to be a screen roll. They run screen rolls quite often, but not as often as you see in games in this day and age. Ron goes underneath, which is dangerous. Jazz have packed it in. We're going to run a rub sequence, or switch cuts as we call them. You can see Ronnie Harper's gone baseline on a switch cut off of the triangle. It brings an alternate player into the post. Pippen's double teamed by the ball and gets it back out to Ron Harper for a wide open three from the corner. You can see Dennis's effectiveness here, just keeping the ball alive, even though, he doesn't get the rebound. He's keeping it alive long enough so that it's just not a open opportunity for Malone. Here's a wing entry, and we're just setting up, trying to take advantage off what we call a solo. And Pippen's got advantage player. We get the ball swung, and, as they're starting to get into rotation, Tony just challenges them to take away. We always talk about direct line basketball. The direct line basketball is whenever there's no one between yourself and the basket, that you take the ball to the basket and make the defense come to you. As a result, Stockton has to come to Tony Kukoc, which leaves Ron Harper wide open for a layup. That's the most basic fundamental of basketball as we teach it, is direct line. This is kind of an interesting sequence here. I'll run it just for your editing pleasure. In the process of chasing this rebound down, Dennis Rodman spends too much time on the ball. He's running with Antoine Carr here. And it ends up that he can never get back to Karl Malone. And Karl Malone with Tony Kukoc guarding him is not a fair matchup. And you can see there, Karl's got a leg up Tony's butt, holding him off. And they're going to exacerbate this whole defensive situation, which causes illegal defense. And the illegal defense call, which is kind of a minor point, but you can see Michael come over and talk to Dennis Rodman and say, look, you can't leave him alone. You can't get messing around too much with the ball because Tony's not out here to guard Karl Malone. Here's the basic format with the Jazz. The Jazz like to cross out the wings. Horny comes off, and that sets up a situation where it's a very deep play. So they're way below the normal wing entry, which you'll see in a triangle is quite different than their wing entry, which is halfway between the baseline and the wing entry slot, which gives a really direct line for a pass into Malone. We go on pass, and we get back into our rotation. They have, obviously Antoine Carr now in the ball game to try and take advantage of Tony, who's considered a lightweight to, a size player like Antoine Carr. It helped them out. Here's a little sequence for Steve. Wing entry, guard, basket cut, and a double pick on which it brings, Kerr off to get an opportunity to shoot a shot. Basic format, a lot of teams run it. Rodman clears the baseline, and now they go back to a squeeze. 24-second violation, too much time messing around. So there's a little alert signal that I'm giving the team about, okay, let's get ready for this sequence. They obviously are going to call it 45. Most basic system they have. Very efficient with it. I want you to just see this drive by Karl Malone here. We want to send baseline. We're a baseline push team defensively. Utah's a middle push team. Juxtaposition there, just the difference. And so if we get into that, there's a rotation. And Bill Wennington slides down to stop the drive. Michael's supposed to be in rotation on pass. He gets there. But watch Karl's takeoff. He has a knee lift that is threatening. I think it's taken out a few teeth and a few jaws in this game. You kind of see how he intimidates people when he comes off with that knee lift. You know, Karl's probably caused as much stitches as anybody in the NBA. Their second unit comes in the ball game. Shannon Anderson comes in and plays the off guard, replacing Hornacek. And he's good with his back to the basket as a post-up player. And they like to run this. It's kind of a little variation on what they like to do, and it looks like it's going to be either a screen roll. He gets a naked side. They call it 23 was a number they call it. We challenge. Steve steps on the guy's foot accidentally, but Shannon is, efficient in getting to the middle. This is a reverse split. In the triangle, it can make basic cuts, which is the basic speed cut on the baseline by the corner player, over top cut by the wing. You can see Bushler over here at the top of the circle setting his man up. But as a result, Kerr waits for a screen from Tony, and that's a reverse split. When he brings his man in there, they just knock the ball out of Wennington's hand, but that's an effective way to get a three-point shot for Kerr also. This is operation that's a guard-to-guard lag. Bushler sees that the forward spot is operated on strong side, that's ball side, and he goes to the weak side of the wing. Kerr makes a guard-to-guard pass, which sets up what we call center opposite, and that brings a player into the post. And it changes up how the centers are playing. You get an opportunity to keep centers on the weak side, like a Mutombo or a Ewing or somebody like that you don't want in the lane. You want them outside the lane guarding or trying to defend it. Very efficient way of making the defense have to adjust. This is a disputed call. I think he actually got the shot off in time. A lot of Jazz fans feel that this is one that was taken away from them at some course in this game. But as I always say, as you can see here, their flash action that goes on in the camera, they're hooked up to a system, and it blinds referees and players. Something the NBA allowed to happen because they wanted these photo shots. But you can just see it. Such an intense flash that people close their eyes. That time they didn't have a review, and Dick Bavetta takes that shot away, which is a three-point shot. Well, so be it. Well, I want to go over this. This little sequence, you've seen this before. We talked about guard quickie and everything going on in this particular aspect of the sequence of an automatic that we like to run. And what's happened is the teams have adjusted to it, and so we've made a little special out of it, trying to hook this guard who's inside of this play. So the Jazz jump it, they get it in the right position. Kerr comes back to the pinch post. We're always playing some part of a triangle. The guys are taking one of the positions or one of the spaces, and he's at the pinch post. And here's something we ask players to do when they make a reverse pivot, is get their feet down if they're going to make this reverse pivot. Steve had to make that outside turn or reverse pivot, if you want to call it drop step, if it's in the lane, so that he could set the pick legally. And Shannon Anderson runs into it, and that's a foul. That was a good call. Well, this is a sequence we've shown you from the other side. It's called a guard-to-guard lag, center opposite. And you can see that the weak side wing is just Tony Kukoc has the opportunity to come in the post. But his man tries to beat him to the other side of the lane, so he just stays on this side and receives a cross-court pass from Rodman. And, Tony holds the ball, and Luke comes out and sets a pick for him. Being a left-hander, he's very efficient doing this, and he brings it to the middle. And as you know, Utah likes you to push it to the middle, and they like to come and pressure the dribbler with that middle penetration defense. But Dennis sets up a pick here, opens Michael up. Steve was also open in the corner. Stockton had to make a choice. There are points in the game in which Jordan, it'll be like, okay, I don't have to exert some of my own personal strength. He just does something very simple, which is middle penetration from a dribble entry. Court's overloaded on the weak side, and that's basically what it's going to be at the end of the ball game, which is a historic kind of a shot he makes. 2 plays in a row. Getting organized here. Ron Harper, a good guard, trying to organize us, get players in position. Dennis sets a cross pick for Michael. Tony's on a squeeze. They're running a double team anyway from the top. Harp opts not to take the shot and sets up the triangle again. You can see Kerr's in the corner and Dennis at the post. He looks like he's coming out to set a pick, but he doesn't get there. And we'll go top of the circle, and Michael just feels the Russell just overplayed him a little bit, and he just reversed out. Tony's a really good passer. They trusted Tony as a passer. One of the options in this offense that's kind of like to say that it's kind of like jazz. You can take off on the various themes and run your own little music run as you want to, as long as you still know what the melody is, as you come back to what the basic thematic structure is of the song. Triangle offense is a little bit like that. Here you see a sequence where we say if you get jammed up going to the corner, guards going to the corner, strong side fill is what we call this. Kukoc has the ball. And there's a little bit of traffic element there. He's got the freedom to make a middle penetration drive. Harper extends out. Tony's able to get all the way through this mess and get to the basket. In NBA basketball, there's just fouls on every single play in the playoffs. It just becomes a matter of what's important, what's necessary to call for some of the referees. This is a basically jam. Russell's trying to jam up a move by Jordan, obviously, to try and come to the post. They're in a real duel now, physical duel. And Jordan not going to the post, he's using an outside activity. A little careless at the end of the second quarter, getting ourselves back in a deficit here. And try and run the clock a little bit too much. And that ends the quarter. It ends a situation which we're okay. We're down 4, but we're not happy about the way we're playing. We're back on an offensive sequence in which we're going to, bring some people to post, see how Pippen's doing. He's got the ability to post up Hornacek and get back to some of our advantage. Let's talk about that a little bit. It's a little different than a drop step. We call this a rear turn, using the pivot foot. Drop step's more in the lane. Tony's outside the lane when he makes this move. Pivot's a really important basketball. We've lost a lot about that in the recent years. Players doing a lot more on the dribble than using pivots. Jazz used a technique that's a bit different than most teams. Most teams want to play defense in front of their bench. The Jazz opt to play offense in front of their bench on the road. You get to make the choice when you're a visiting team. And we are inverse, just like our defenses are different. We like to play defense in front of our bench in the second half. And so we do have the ability to send guys, talk about defensively, and feel like that's the strength of who we are. Well, Longley gets in foul trouble. Dennis Rodman has to come in early in this third quarter. This is a sequence that kind of ignites a little bit of a conflict between Malone and Rodman. They try to outstrength each other. Dennis is a strong player. He's not as heavy as Malone. Malone's got him by a couple inches and probably 20 plus pounds. But here, normally, Carl might take an arm out or dislocate somebody's shoulder in that sequence, but Dennis is strong enough to withstand that. But it starts setting up this sequence. It's going to be a kind of a wrestling match on the court that's kind of a famous part of this ball game. Cross-grain, outside cut by the guard. Tony sets a pick, gets knocked down. Michael makes a jump shot out of that sequence. It's a nice option between our offense. Carl's efficient from that part. Dennis makes a fake at him, I think, takes him out of his sequence or rhythm. Here's one of those sequences that we talk about that's an interesting sequence that Malone operating on the inside and how strong he is in here. The interior passing of this team is phenomenal. In this sequence, obviously, it looks like it's going to be a rip screen by Hornacek, and instead Malone sets a pick on his man, and Hornacek just drops the ball down in. But, Carl misses a shot, and then Dennis ties him up. Looks like it's a foul, but it starts at a grievance. Looks like we have pretty good sequence going on there in isolation on the weak side after running the triangle. Michael loses control. But this sequence of players exposing the ball and taking away sets up this whole intrigue kind of thing that goes against Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone. You can see Karl. It's an isolated format here, the two of them, as they start going through this total sequence of takedown. And then as Malone runs by him, he's able to grab him by his ankle and foul on Dennis. Well, we go back and forth in this quarter with a lot of physical activity. Both teams know how important this game is. We have a little sequence of action here which puts Pippen in the middle against Stockton. And I think this is where he turns and makes that jump hook, and he's not right. Tweaked his back. Guard quickie. Solo action. Dennis misreads the play. We just end up having a solo. It's Pippen again. Misses a bunny. Dennis cleans it up. Here's a sequence that we can see the most basic fundamentals of Steve Kerr just doing some things that are important, which is to box out. A hope shot, but, he takes a position here to box out. It's a good fundamental thing, and Carr runs him over, and we get the call. Might not happen every time in this game, but that particular time it does. Last sequence for the Jazz, third quarter's coming to an end. The C-up is what they call this sequence. They have a number C4 if it's the four-man, which is Adam Keefe in this situation. And Howard's pretty good at this. And Keefe gets in the scorebook. Ball's in our hands, come back and start the fourth quarter. Jordan has to play through this quarter. Something usually gets a rest period inside of the fourth quarter, maybe till the 9:50 timeout or 8:56 timeout or whatever, TV timeout, which gives them a solid 8 to 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. But this game, because Pippen's limited, he's got to play the duration. This is a point where we've got to make a little bit of a stand. This is a game that's, we don't want to let it get away from us. We're playing a little short-handed. Longley's in foul trouble. Pippen's out with a back problem. Tony's not as effective this game as he was in game number 5. All this being said, all these options being run just like they're supposed to be run. This Kerr comes off this screen. Utah pays no attention to Dennis Rodman. And Dennis is the right option to make on this, but nobody else steps to the ball. And Dennis, who's reluctant to take an outside shot, takes this one and then throws up his hands like, oh yeah, who knew, huh? Right. No one's guarding me anyway. Pippen's back on the court to try and give it another go. Michael's getting a blow. This doesn't last long, but fortunately we can get a short segment here before an automatic timeout. Our offense became a little stagnant. Tony on a middle penetration. Rip screen. Karl Malone, double team quickly. A wide open shot by Carr. It's a little out of his range. About 17 footer, and it ended up with a 19-footer. Dribble entry, triangle, basic cuts by the guard in the wing. You see how Steve Kerr was manhandled in this series. You people that are fans, we ask everybody set picks. In fact, the Utah Jazz, Stockton is probably one of the best picking guards. Steve's asked to make this squeeze, and Malone just trashes him. 3-point shot put us back in the ball game. It's a little self-sacrifice there. Cross pick by the Jazz, one of their favorite things to do. Dennis lets him go baseline, which is not good, but he's quick enough strong enough to hold him up. 3-point play by Anderson, opportunity. It's the rip screen, just change it up. One of the things Karl did on this side of the court was he usually traveled when he made his pivot to shoot this shot. And he would step around rather than pivot around. You know, referees get so used to guys making their move. You watch this, he just steps back around instead of making the subsequent pivot. We're reforming the triangle on the weak side, make the Jazz have to change their defense and put MJ in the post. Nice pick by Pippen, even though he gets trashed on it. Jordan goes through the landmines again, finds where he wants to take a shot. Pippen's in reverse action, double screen for Jordan. Talk to Michael about, at this point in the ball game, about just snapping his shot off instead of following through. He ended up having some issues about making shots at this time, and he was just kind of, I think, just too tired or something. I know you're tired, but just mention, follow through on your shot. Big play here by Michael after missing a shot. He's the last guy back, getting back on defense, even though there's a loose ball kind of comes out of this thing, a scrum. The last 3 minutes of the ball game, trying to stay spaced. You can see the spacing is good here, organized. Looks like we're too focused on trying to get the ball and Michael into activity. Timeout call. Most referees will say a player has the opportunity to land a situation like that. When he catches a ball in the air. And Jordan's demonstrating that. But to no avail. Rodman's chased back to the sideline by Hugh Hollins. So we continue on. Special play by Utah. They abort the rip screen and come and set a screen roll. This time in the game, they have some specials, as all teams do, and Karl's a good shooter from distance here. Well, in this sequence, we have critical game situation, and we know where the ball's going. They know where the ball's going. Malone cross-court pass to Stockton for a 3-point shot. At this point, there's a timeout sequence. I know that what I want to have done in this situation, if we go 2 for 1, an option, and we run an open sequence. I tell Michael about his shot again, and we set this up, and I know that Jerry Sloan won't call it timeout. That's just the way he is. So we talk about what's going to happen at the defensive end, that we're going to run this sequence. It's going to be an open. Kerr's going to be in the corner to keep Stockton at home and give Michael a chance to take the ball at this defense. He does. And so now we're set up with, we know they're going to make a cross pick. And I tell Michael, you can come back, play this, double team, trap him, whatever it's going to be. This is their end game situation. You know they're not going to call a timeout. And he does, and the whole sequence works according to our favor. And we run the same sequence again in open. Dennis is supposed to come by and take a pick, leave the court open for the middle for Michael to have an opportunity to, confident to shoot that shot at that time. We have this opportunity to have to defend with 5.2 seconds, which is, a lifetime of time in NBA basketball. And kind of surprised at what happens, although Stockton's hit a three-pointer to give them that 3-point lead. Their last shot attempt is one that kind of surprises. They don't have enough time to get into what they're trying to do. '98 finals is over. Bulls win another three-peat, and it's chaos. It's kind of a sigh that went up when Michael had that last shot. It was as quiet as a church on a Sunday night here in Salt Lake. It was very interesting. We had a celebration. It was on the court, obviously, because we're a visiting team. And there's no way we're going back in the locker room, especially at this particular building, which was set up just for the finals. We always would say if you lose one finals, it's always hard to come back. It's so difficult. It's so psychologically draining. So this is a remarkable finals where we were able to win 2 on another team's home court, which is not, you might be able to win 1, but you don't expect you're going to win 2 games in a finals as a visiting team.